Hopefully everybody can hear me, okay? On the lapel mic here. As Matt mentioned, and then an improvement that we made for this year's Plugfest is we decided to try to add some real world scenarios to be able to demonstrate when and where this technology and the power of this comes in. So we've crafted a little story here, and I will be your storyteller, and then we'll take breaks, and I've got some fantastic assistance coming from the folks at, we've got Brian McAuliffe with Novatech, Andy Hess with NetScout, and John Reedman with Itron will come up and really walk through the technical details. So with that, we're going to begin our story. Our story begins with Terry, manager of telecom for California United Power and Light, or like what we call COUPLE. COUPLE is a large electric and gas utility on the West Coast that spans coastal, mountain, and rural portions of the state. COUPLE has chosen to eliminate multiple legacy networks for the state-of-the-art private LTE network. They understand the critical role of communications for grid operations, distributed generation, meteorological sensors, and many other use cases. Based on the LTE global wireless standard, they could consolidate many aging solutions and support all anticipated future growth. The system has been up and running for a year. Terry and his team built a network that has the coverage, reliability, resiliency, and cybersecurity protection for a utility-grade network. For example, they installed geographically redundant cores to eliminate single points of failure. Tower sites were hardened against high winds, tidal surge, or snow accumulation based on their location. Battery backup systems and generators were installed at tower sites to ensure the wireless network was up when the power was out. Towers were equipped with cameras and meteorological sensors to enhance situational awareness. Careful design of the network included additional towers for areas with a high concentration of endpoints. Where possible, tower sites were equipped with redundant network connections. Quality of service prioritization, which is what we're going to delve in today, was assigned to all traffic. The command center was built to monitor the network, and cybersecurity was a primary design component of the network. Our day begins, like most in California, with rain. No, actually, I wrote sun, but apparently, no, it's normally a beautiful weather here in California. And that was about to change. But before we get there, let's take a close look at what normal looks like. So I'm going to hand it over to Andy with NetScout.
Thank you. So this is my first time participating in Plugfest, and it's been a blast.
Yeah.
We all right? Testing. Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So it's been a blast working with everybody and building this real network on the fictitious company that has been built. So you might have heard of NetScout, and you might know the name NetScout, but I venture to say many of you don't really know what we do. So let me tell you what we do, and I'm going to get into the perspective on this particular network here. So at NetScout, if there's anything you can take away, is we feed off of the actual wire data, the packet data that runs across the networks. Whatever network type that you have. In this particular case, we have network built around this private LTE environment. That's fine. These networks are built for a purpose. The purpose is connecting devices and controllers to application systems and users to applications. That's what the network is built for, and that's what it does. We observe the wire data on that network. In our fictitious network here, so the way this is going to work is I've got a PowerPoint deck over here. My assistant Carl over here is going to try and keep up with me when we get into the actual data. So you've got two things to look at. Our fictitious network over here, our real network on the fictitious customer, fictitious company, we've got observability on the edge. If you weren't here for the demonstration yesterday, right here we have the head end. Right here, we have the edge, and in that corner, we've got the packet core. We are connecting all of that together, and we are observing from the NetScout perspective, we are observing the wire data on both the edge and the head end. Okay, so that's the context of which you're going to see the data that we're producing. So this is a great day. This is a normal day. We haven't reached our disaster yet. And in the normal day, green is good. Okay, in this particular case, on this network, green is good. From a network operations perspective, green is good. And we can see, based on our peek into the operations center, you would have a screen similar to this in your operations center that is a live updating screen of the health of particular KPIs. KPIs on applications, on network components that we are measuring, again, based off of acquiring that wire data off of the network. And now if you've seen a 3-pane decode of packets, it's not really humanly usable. We take that data and we make it much more humanly usable so that now it can reach a broader audience. Okay, so normal day of operation, we have green is good. So in the operations center, I'm tracking KPIs on the various SCADA applications that are running across this network. In this particular case, we've got VBO and Flizzr, DR, and these applications. We also have mission critical push to talk applications, which has a lot of signaling and audio and those type of things. So we're measuring all of this, and some of the KPIs that we're bringing forward are KPIs about the actual behavior of those applications based on characteristics like retransmissions, timeouts, number of sessions, number of successful transactions. And so we're measuring that, we're putting it into nice, easy to use dashboards for the everything is good, right? We have a great day. But one more thing I'll just pull out here is for Flizzr, and we focused a lot on this network, and you're going to see, we're going to blast this thing. You're going to see that we prioritize Flizzr as really one of the highest priorities on this network, right? I mean, your Flizzr schemes need to take priority, regardless of what else is on that network. And in this particular case, I'm measuring it again at the head-end and at the edge, and we're measuring there's about a 25 milliseconds. It takes about 25 milliseconds for that packet to go from here to here. Right? It goes through the core and all of that. And really simple, a simple dashboard. Good, green is good, normal day operation on the network. Flizzr's behaving very well. And this is normal operation, and we're going to get into the disaster here in a moment. So that is my intro. So let me hand it over to my friend Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan Ford from Everything Automation. We've developed 3 different automation flows to basically replicate a distribution network. Sorry about this one. Sorry about that. So we just made a Flizzr control screen, pretty standard for what would be a client application. Flizzr stands for fault location, isolation, and service restoration. And what that does, it automatically protects distribution networks from faults. The devices commonly used in Flizzr include closers, fault indicators, and motor-operated disconnects. This flow, as Andy was saying, is second only to MCC-PT emergency flow as far as the QCI levels for the LTE network goes. The second flow is fault bar optimization. And what that does is optimize the flow of power on the distribution network to ensure that the motors aren't dragging down the network and we're not wasting real power on fake power, pretty much. The demand response is a system that calls upon small generators or batteries to shed their generation onto the network, or it turns off air conditioners so that you can reduce that load on the network. Currently, we actually have that's simulating the demand response load on a normal network. There's a standard Flizzr screen. That's what the comms kind of dashboard look like on a normal day. Everything green, all flows are happy, they're happy. And I think we're going to hand it to AMI, John from iTron.
Thanks, Rob.
Yes.
Hi, I'm John Griebling from iTron, and we're supporting the activity today during normal operations. Orange is good. But these are typical read rates and so forth. And the setup for the AMI here is a laptop that's our head end right here. It's our normal AMI collection management head end. And then a simulator that's back here, both running on a laptop. And the simulator is a software engineering development and testing tool. It's capable of simulating up to 15 million meters. It's kind of the scale that we have to be able to test to. And the traffic flow has been configured to cover AMI interval data, distributed intelligence data, outage management data, alarms, and over-the-air firmware downloads to the meters. So this laptop this setup is configured for a dense urban environment, which we estimate as about 8,000 meters maximum. For example, if you had 2 cell sites serving an area, and worst case, one of them goes down, you could easily end up with 8,000 meters in a single cell site sector. Okay, so we configured it for 8,000 meters under a single cell site, and then we're transmitting 2,000 bytes per meter every 15 minutes. And that equates to 16 megabytes per cell site every 15 minutes. Okay? And like I said, this is a software and firmware development tool, so it's not intended to. We're discussing potentially productizing it because I think it would be very helpful for the utilities to have something similar to this that they can use, not just for developing software and firmware for the meters and the head-end systems, but for testing on the network like this. And with that, I will hand it back to Mike.
All right, and I learned a lesson not to walk in front of the speaker. All right, so if you guys happen to miss the primer that Matt put on yesterday, I'll just take a real quick break. This is real traffic. This is real DMP3 traffic. This is real iTron meter reading traffic. This is real. We can just invent traffic on this net. This is all real stuff. With that, we'll get back to our story. So the private LTE network was a huge success in Cup. Around 8 a.m., a normal day started going progressively bad. The ground beneath Terry's feet began to sway. He could never have guessed what these next few days would require of his team, his network, and himself. Terry knew immediately that this was no ordinary quake. The whole building shook violently, knocking items off shelves, and the light fixtures were swaying like they were boats on the rough seas. Following protocol, Terry sheltered in place. When it was safe, he checked the area to ensure there were no injuries. Finding none, he verified the building was not affected enough to have to relocate to their redundant site. Terry turned his attention to the LTE network. He would have no direct communications with transmission, distribution, or gas operations in the next few hours. They would be dealing with the effects of this catastrophic natural disaster. Terry knew they only needed one thing, and that was for the communications network to be up, so they have the situational awareness and ability to control the flow of electricity and gas to the service territory. In minutes, that service territory experienced the full effect of the earthquake. Some areas were completely destroyed, while others were mildly affected, and everything in between. This would be the most challenging day for everyone at Couple. Public wireless networks were immediately swamped with millions of calls, texts, and video uploads to social media sites. People were concerned about their family members, their friends, they wanted to know their status. Terry didn't have time to call home. He would do that later. Couple's decision to build a private LTE network meant they had the full control of what devices could join and transmit on that network. Most importantly, all network traffic has been prioritized to ensure the most critical communications will get through. Public networks would prove beneficial during the weeks and months to come. At this moment, a private network is the only option for a utility to have full control. So with that, we're going to take a closer look at when this network is heavily loaded. Andy, back to you.
Thank you. So remember I said green was good? Now we got some changes here that have happened. So I'm just going to take one break here for a moment and just think about in a very highly standardized industry, we've got green is good, orange is good, and red is good. Don't tell the standards folks that, or we're going to be change our colors to purple. All right, let's get back to the story. So Flizzr kicks in, and the network is prioritizing that. And we can see that evidence in our operations center. So if you think about the moment that disaster strikes, and of course everybody's going to call their family, friends, everybody okay? All right, we got the human factor out of the way. Now we're going to get back to what do we got going on in our operations center. So as we can take a very quick glance, we can see that we've got some changes here that have happened. Over here to the far right is our Flizzr application. That's on QCI 5. It is basically unchanged from the other ones. In the let's go far left. We have VVO, which is taking a minor degradation because of the increased load. And then we've got demand response, which has also taken some degradation because it's prioritized much lower. Then we also have AMI. So let's go forward here real quick. This was kind of the fun part. We really didn't want to tempt Mother Nature and ask for a real earthquake. So we had to generate one. And really we generated one by using a little app called WAN Killer. WAN Killer before. Well, basically what we can do on this network is we jam an immense amount of traffic through this network to basically simulate a heavily loaded network, right? So we use this WAN Killer and we really jam this thing up. I'm actually going back in time here, so let me tell you a little bit more about this NetScout tool over here. It's really kind of a time machine for your network. So we can go back in time. We're actually looking at a test that we ran yesterday. And we can go back in time and we can get all this stats out of it. So you don't have to wait for the problem to come back if you're dealing with just some problem. Of course, we're not just looking for earthquakes to happen. That'd be crazy. So we can go back in time. And with this, it's a very interactive display. And what we're showing here on the top, I think the screens match. On the top here, the green is we see just link utilization. So we're jamming in somewhere in the range of 60, 70, 80 megabits of traffic into a pretty limited bandwidth LTE environment. On the other side, we're coming out about 1.5. You can take this application and it's very interactive, and you can see Carl can turn on and off. So WAN Killer is purple. I kind of joked about the purple thing, but here it is. Here's purple. And we can interact with this, and you can go back in time. We don't have the ability to go forward in time yet. We're still developing that. We can go back in time, and we can go and get all of these stats, right? All these KPIs off of the network. So we can see that the network traffic here has exploded. And I want to point out in this, and Carl's going to flip over to our grid here, is the top chart here is just utilization of the headed network, and the bottom chart is actually that purple is our WAN Killer. So we can see that Wayne Killer was the thing that drove the majority of this traffic up. So go ahead and turn Wayne Killer off there. And we're gonna see something else pop up. We haven't really talked about AMI yet, but let me talk about this AMI, these 8,000 meters that we have running, in this environment. What we see from AMI, so we already saw that the QoS levels of Flizzr kicked in. We see Flizzr was unchanged. We see some degradation in some lower priority, and then you got AMI, which is among some of the lowest. We can actually see where AMI it starts to tail off, as you see at the beginning of this chart over here to the left. It starts to tail off as our network utilization was ramped up here for about 40 minutes or so. We can see that AMI dropped. When we shut down Wayne Killer to give the network some room to breathe again, we can see that AMI traffic just naturally bumped right back up and continue to operate, right? So kind of speaks to the robustness, if you will, of that AMI traffic. It just now it can come on back and launch off. And you can see here, so as Carl turns on, let's turn on Flizzr and maybe the SIP TCP. You can see in these charts, again, virtually unchanged behavior based on the load of the network. Obviously speaks to the benefits of QoS. And we proved it, right? We proved it by doing the fun thing, jamming this Wayne Killer on the network. So, Ryan, back to you.
So in response to the earthquake, what would happen on a distribution network is that multiple Flizzr schemes would activate. Bulk bar optimization would completely go crazy, it wouldn't know what to do, and the demand response would try and hit as many things as possible to reduce the amount of power. I do have some screens to show you. I wasn't going to, but two. So this would be what a normal Flizzr system would look like. Everything's good, everything's happy. And when the earthquake hit, we had multiple failures on section 1, multiple failures on section 2, and demand response. Is not getting through. And that's pretty much as far as the scale goes, that's how the earthquake would react. And this is the comp stats that we took when we were actually doing the test. So Flizzr was not affected at all. VBO had maybe 4% failures, and DR had massive failures throughout its network. John?
Thanks. So I'm actually going to flip back here. So the AMI system behaved. This was a really well done setup with the instrumentation of the network from NetScam, but it illustrated that the AMI system behaves exactly as it was designed. And so all the data continued, the interval data, distributed intelligence data, but with much higher retries and retransmissions. And the read rate went from about 99.9% down to about 42%, and even lower, as they kept the Wayne Killer pounding it. And then the power outage notifications were transmitted in areas where the power is down. In this setup, not many of them got through because of the they were all prioritized the same way for the AMI. So we've talked about a lot of things we can do next year, but we'll illustrate next year the prioritization, the power outage notifications at a higher level, so you would continue to have that information after a disaster like this. And then there were, same thing with vibration alarms and other types of alarms that were caused by the earthquake. And then the firmware download just continues at a much lower pace, and then it just picks up, once everything comes back to normal. So we were really happy to see, all that demonstrated here. And Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, so we got a great chance there to take a look at what happens when the network gets overloaded. What if in those moments when it is fully overloaded, it's really, really needed? And so we'll continue with our story. Back at the Distribution Operations Center, a decision was made to suspend all FLISR schemes until more information could be gathered about the electric grid and the potential public safety issues. The couple has set up their disaster command center with representation across the company. Terry will send his reports to the IT and telecom rep in that center. He uses his mission critical push-to-talk handset to contact them on their mission critical push-to-talk handset. Again, private network, total control over communications. Based on reports from police and public, an area of eastern downtown and nearby residential areas was hardest hit. Lines are down, fires are blazing, fed by natural gas line breaks, and the public is at risk. Leadership immediately gives the command to stop all electricity and gas flow to those regions. Even if it meant stopping service for areas not affected, public safety is the highest priority. Electric and gas operators send SCADA signals to substations and gas valve sites to immediately shut off. Those would be the most critical communications sent in the early hours of the disaster. With proper QoS and careful network design to ensure coverage, those signals took priority over other traffic types and were delivered. So let's take a closer look at that. Andy?
So I think we've kind of covered this, but let's just reiterate again that we have the ability to measure the wire data. We can see the QCI, we can categorize based on the QoS levels. We've got network operations that has information that they can act upon. They have information they can now communicate. As you can imagine, there's the chains of command, in the field doing the recovery effort. There's chain of command, internal that also needs to know are systems still operating well. And the more information, the better information, high quality information you can give the operations center, the better you are in pushing that data. So we try to give you data so you can make better decisions, reduce your mean time to repair, and those types of objectives. So with this, and kind of segueing into, and I'll say it again, FLISR was unaffected, right? QCI 5. We also have, in kind of a segue to tomorrow's talk of mission critical push to talk, we can also measure call quality, signaling of the calls that are taking place. So as Carl's going to catch up with my PowerPoint's always a little faster, right? So we have measurements for all of that application data, right? And if you just think about, just step back from the network for a moment, the things that are running across your network in packet form are your applications. This is just one of those complex applications, right? Voice, video, mission critical push to talk, complicated application, critical application, utilizing that infrastructure. We prioritize that, it makes it through. When we were WAN killing this network, we saw that SIP signaling for mission critical push to talk was completely unchanged, right? Completely unchanged. We ran some tests right here yesterday. We did an emergency button, went right through. We made phone calls, went right through. We did video, right through, as we were killing this particular network, right? Again, mission critical means high priority. We proved that through this exercise. So we have the ability within here to go see that quality over time, the signaling. We can drill into individual sessions for that. We can see who's calling whom. We can get into areas of how many calls are taking place or streams, the number of streams that are active, the number of streams over time, so that you have, again, more information. And if there is any quality degradation or anything maybe induced by the handset or something of that nature, you have the irrefutable evidence to go back in time and start to prove that, right? So that is my piece. I'm going to end with one more aspect, and this comes to me because I've heard in many sessions here today the term cybersecurity. I just want to sprinkle in that we actually have and we utilize that same data set that we track for performance. We track that also from the vantage point of cybersecurity. Because in time of disaster, in time of trial and need, the worst thing that can happen now is you compound this by having something else, some adversary wanting to make matters even worse. So we can utilize that same data set for also cybersecurity. So we have a booth right outside the door. Come talk to us. So.
All right, another important point to make is this isn't brand new technology. This is LTE, this is how it was designed. What we're coupling together here is control. The private LTE network operator has the opportunity to control. They get to decide what devices connect, how they transmit, and at what priority. And that's really what this display is all about. So let's go ahead and close up the story. The coupled private LTE network performed very well on that memorable day. The coverage, reliability, and cybersecurity solutions exceeded utility requirements. Terry and his team have a network they can be proud of, and the critical role it plays in their utility operations. Those special requirements of Terry's network have just begun. Crews will be arriving from across the country in the coming days, and cleanup can take months. Voice, text, and video communications on private LTE with interoperability with traditional LMR solutions will be needed. We invite you to return tomorrow when we'll take a closer look at all of that, including the digital briefcase and some other demonstrations. Now, we understand that there is a variety of desire to understand how all of this works. Some of you don't care. You just want it to work. You're perfectly happy with that. Your title probably starts with director, vice president, or something. Some of you have a very, very deep desire to know how this works, because the same group that I just talked about are going to be looking at you and saying, make it work. I don't know how you do it, but just do it. So we're going to take a 30-minute break. I invite you to come out. These are fantastic vendors. We have Ericsson, Itron, NetScout, Novatech. You can really find out. We're going to open the hood on this thing so you can take a good look at it. At 3:30, we're going to repeat what we just did now. So as Matt said earlier, tell your friends, tell your people that missed this show to come back, and you can see it again at 3:30. With that, we'll begin the technical. Oh, I'm sorry. And I made the schedule. I forgot Q&A. Everybody shelter in place. Questions?